Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Mac, and today we're talking about getting you your Mythic Dimensius mount. With pre-patch coming along and throwing balance out the window, the fight has been made much simpler, or not simpler per se, but rather easier from a numbers perspective. Things don't hit as hard anymore, and it's much easier for pugs even to get down this boss and get their own mount. So I thought it would be a cool video idea, since we have 3 weeks left of the pre-patch, to give you kind of a breakdown of this fight in hopes that it can help you lead your own pug, maybe lead your guild into getting their mounts, or something along those lines. So I'm going to be going over all of the specific details here that you need to know to effectively raid lead this fight, because there's only a couple of really important details you need to know. But before we get into the actual kill video I'm going to show you, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that are heavy recommendations, if not requirements, for this boss. First of which being a Death Knight. On Phase 2 in the platforms, when you're flying from platform to platform, you need to have at least one Death Knight to death grip those null binder adds. You don't need a Death Knight because you can have range kill them. However, a Death Knight just makes it so much simpler, and really, if you're going to plug this, or if you're going to do this without having any progression on this boss prior, a Death Knight is necessary. I'll talk about that in more detail once we get to Phase 2. The second requirement, and not a requirement, but a heavy recommendation here, is a Warlock for their gate, again, in Phase 2. I'll talk about that once we get there. Aside from that, we have six people assigned to the orbs in Phase 2 when you're flying from the platforms. The difference there is from Heroic to Mythic, instead of having 3 orbs you can collect and pick up, you can now have 6 orbs, meaning you need 6 people assigned to that. Aside from that, we have one more very important assignment on the last platform on Phase 3 for 3 specific people. So pretty much just pick 3 people you or yourself that you can rely upon to do that mechanic. And aside from that, that's really all the requirements necessary. You can do this fight with 2 healers, 3 healers. 2 healers probably makes it easier for the DPS checks to just blast through mechanics. We did it with 3 because our guild is healer heavy. We have way more healers than we do anything else, believe it or not. So you don't need 2 healers. You can do it with 3, but 2 is really the ideal. And then group also does matter. Or grouping rather does matter. Groups 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's important that everyone in the raid understand what group they're in because of Phase 3, and I will talk about that again when we get to it. But those are the requirements, or the suggestions. With those out of the way, let's actually jump into the fight here. First thing, before I even start the video, you'll notice there's 3 living masses here. We got 1, 2, and 3. There are 6 on this platform. There's 3 over here, and there's 3 on this side over here that you can't see from my perspective. Each of these, just like on Heroic, drops a excess gravity that needs to be picked up and brought to the center. But they need to all be killed at the same time, and while that sounds difficult, with the pre-patch tuning, it's actually quite simple. One elemental shaman with their ascendants can pretty much do this by themselves. And I know I'm not doing this by myself, but they're at half health and the fight is, what, a second and a half into it? It's not very difficult to do. As long as you have cleave, these guys will fall over instantly. They all drop their own excess gravity, which needs to be picked up and brought to the center. You'll see these orbs will get spawned. We have this one right here. We have one right here, and I just picked one up. You can see I have the buff right there. There's 6 on this platform, 3 on this side, 3 on the other side, and then they just need to be brought to the center, just like you would in Heroic. Now, sometimes this, like, gripping ground that you need to stand in so you don't get sucked in can kind of appear all over the place when 2 or more people with orbs meet. Don't panic if that happens. Just keep moving towards the center. Sometimes it will be off center, sometimes it won't. It doesn't matter where it is technically. As long as your raid is standing in it, it doesn't matter. And that's the very beginning of the fight. He's already at 65% with no lust. Super fast, super easy. The next big mechanic change here is this, the tank knockback mechanic. This knockback is much more powerful than it is in Heroic, and you'll see what I mean in a second. It's very important that the tank stands in the right spot, and you'll see the tank over here, and I'll go back a little bit, is going to be standing right here. Effectively, they need to be standing somewhere on this line, like this, in this circle, halfway through it. They want to be around, that looks bad, they want to be in the center of this circle, effectively, around that ballpark. And that gives the other DPS or other players in the raid enough room to get knocked back without getting knocked off the edge here. And you'll see I get knocked back a significant distance. There's been multiple pulls I've seen people knocked off, not expecting it, so just be ready for that. You have to be stacked pretty close to that knockback mechanic. Once that's done, we have the adds that need to die that also drop excess mass. Same mechanic we have in Heroic. They die as soon as possible. They all need to die at the same time. Shouldn't be a problem because everyone's damage is so dang high. These orbs need to be dropped off on the far end. Try not to drop these orbs. I know it's pre-patch and a lot of the numbers balance is pretty easy, but this stuff on the ground from those circles does hurt. So do not put this anywhere near melee because we're going to have to go back towards melee to bring those people with the gravity back down to earth. You really want to be putting all of those circles anywhere here, and that will prevent any excess damage. And you'll see I'm actually a dummy. You can see how much damage it does because if I actually go back here, I'm full health, I'm a dummy, and I'm just going to sit in it for a second. Boom. I'm already half health, and I stood in it for, what, 1 or maybe 2 ticks? It still does some significant damage, so it's nothing to scoff at. So make sure you put it in the right spot. Kill the adds as fast as possible. Once this pops, we soak it, just like you would in Heroic, and then we have the reverse gravity. You just have your raiders pick up those reverse or those extra masses that those adds dropped, and then the 2 people with the reverse gravity go to the back of the room in a straight line. That's the only mechanic you have to worry about. As long as they don't overlap, they get pulled up in the air, and the people with the excess gravity, just bring them right back down. And if your damage is okay or decent, this boss will not get another mechanic. We can just blast him and go through it again. If your damage is lower than this, you will get another knockback mechanic, but that's really all you're going to get the next mechanic for. Everything else is going to be... the boss is going to die before that, so it doesn't really necessarily matter. Once the boss is dead here, we go back into phase 2, or we go into phase 2 for the first time, not back into it. Now, I'm not going to worry about the orb placement locations. If you want information on where those are going to be, I'll put it in the description. But you need 2 people per location per orb, because there's 6 orbs, 2 in each location. Just assign people that you trust and know what they're doing to go get those orbs. They do massive damage to the mini-boss, and they really help speed this part of the fight up. Now, once we get to the first platform, we have Artosian. What we're going to do here is the tank is going to hold the mini-boss. That doesn't look good. Adds are about right there. Somewhere in this ballpark, right near the center of the center of the platform, so everyone can effectively cleave into this wall ad as well as onto the null binders, and you'll see what I mean in a second. We're going to get the adds here, and there they go. Now, these lines all need to be pointed towards Dimmy, and you'll notice once I play this, everyone with a line will move towards Dimmy. That is to prevent people from getting knocked back off the edge here. And everyone who doesn't have a line is pretty much going to be playing over here. And then that way they have ample opportunity to cleave this wall. They have the ability to cleave the null binders. And we can just blast through this entire section. This is the part, actually, that's very important for the Death Knights because they need to grip in these null binders. You'll see as these spawn, this is null binder 1, this is null binder 2, this is null binder 3. These 2 need to get gripped in, and actually, they need to be gripped into the melee area where the mini-boss is being tanked. And you'll notice I actually thunderstorm this one in closer to the melee, so it's easier to cleave everything. And you'll see, here comes the thunderstorm, gets knocked in, and then at that point, it's a cleave fest. Cleave off, cleave your mind out. Just do all the damage you possibly can cleaving, and then that's pretty much this platform. It's very simple. This guy should be dead, if not very close to dead, before we ever have to move over to the other side of the platform. This wall is going to die. Void Warden's dead. Null Binders are dead. This guy's 10% at this point. One piece of important information here is before your raid moves over to this side, you do not want to cross this halfway point until you get this notification that Dimensius raises his arm. Once Dimmy raises his arm, then you can go. If you move beforehand and more than half of your raid is over there, he's going to throw the rock on that side. So don't panic. Take it calm and slow, and it'll be very simple to do. Just move over once you see this alert, and you're good. Aside from that, the only other mechanic on this platform here is you'll see we have 3 soaks. How this is broken down, I'll put it somewhere on screen here. But the raid plan is we have the ranged players all in this circle, the healer players all in this circle, and the melee players all in that circle. And we throw a couple ranged in here if we need to. And that way, everyone can soak this, and if you're not in there soaking it, you get stunned for a long time and take a bunch of damage. So make sure you get to it. But assuming everyone lives there, aside from this big dummy over here, which he lives because somehow that happened, it's just nerfed into oblivion, we get to the next platform. Again, just like we had in the first set of platform flying section, we have to go get the orbs. Same 3 people or same 6 people can go get those orbs, it doesn't matter. Once we get to this next platform, positioning matters a lot more than it did in the previous one. And you'll see what I mean in a second. I'll slow it down a little bit. Now, what I do is I plant right next to this null binder. There's going to be a null binder that spawns around here. And what we need to do as a group is we need to stack next to the null binder. So we need to be right about here-ish. That's where range is going to be. Melee wants to be in a straight line between ranged and the mini-boss. And the tank's going to tank him in the same kind of position against this wall so we can easily cleave the null binders and the void wardens. You'll see if I go ahead and start playing again. Oop, playback's a bit janky here. Everything's going to spawn as we're blasting Pargoth. Tank is going to hold it right near this wall. You have null binder 1, 2, and 3. I have a druid knock this null binder in. The Death Knight grips these 2 null binders in. And then again, it's just a cleave fest. The only thing we did differently here is we had ranged prioritize the void wardens just to make sure it dies, because this is where the lock gate comes into play. Everyone is stacked here currently with melee ballpark in between the ranged and the boss. As soon as everyone sees this big orb coming out, we need to have the entire raid move to the right and stack, not necessarily stack, but play alongside this wall here, while still cleaving Pargoth and the ads. And that is because this mechanic will wipe everyone if it's not done properly. This is an instant death mechanic that is not nerfed by this pre-patch. So the null binders get gripped in, you see, grip in, and now we have the mechanic. Now this is the mechanic I was talking about. We only need 3 people to soak. Each of those needs to soak their own orb individually. If any one person soaks this orb and there is another person in this vicinity, it explodes and wipes the raid. So only one person can be in this giant circle, which is why you need only 3 people. And that's why we stacked here initially and moved to the right to avoid that from occurring. So if I play this up, you'll see I pop a defensive, Astral Shift, Hunter pops Turtle, and then we all soak these. And this is where the lock gate comes into play. So I will actually reverse this a little bit and showcase, slow it down a little bit. As we're all soaking this is what it looks like from the soaker's perspective. The rest of the raid, as they move this way, we have the lock over here, who then puts down a lock gate from there all the way to over here. And that's important because it helps us get to that side very quickly when there's a lot of gunk on the ground over here that no one likes and does a lot of damage and it slows us. So you'll see, as I play it, a lock gate will appear over here. There it is. After we soak all this and the Void Warden wall is dead, I Gust of Wind over there, and the rest of the raid, everyone takes that lock gate now. We all get to that side very quickly. Dimensius is raising his arm right on cue with what we had in the last platform, and we have the same mechanic, only the positions are a little bit different than they were on the last platform. And I'll put the raid plan somewhere on the screen here. And assuming everyone's in their right place, no one dies, the same mechanic works out. This is the exact same setup. Now, unfortunately, we had 2 people die here because of their mispositioning, but that's okay. It's not a huge deal because this next bit in Phase 3 is pretty much just a damage check. Now, this is where we're going to lust. We're going to get Dimmy about down to 50-ish% before he actually gets to do anything in this fight. So I'll skip ahead. All right, he's at 55% with lust, and now the mechanics start to come out. We spent our B-res here, And there's no mechanics until we see Darkened Sky, which I think is probably 25 to 30 seconds into this actual phase. So it makes it very simple, very low healer until we get to the actual mechanics. Darkened Sky is coming out, and that is this. These circles that appear and do the big blast wave around everyone, and then put a big dot on people. All we have to do for that is, as a group, pretty much walk into it. Since that one's going to be the first one popping, this one's going to be the second one popping, and this one's going to be the third one popping, we just walk through them, and once we walk through the second one, we just park. That's all we have to do. You'll see we're moving as a raid together through this. We're going to walk through this one. We're going to keep walking through the next one. The dot's going to fall off over here, and we're going to park it right here, and then we're going to do the last dot. And the boss is already at 19%. We're about to get the last theoretical mechanic, if your damage is good, where we have to go under these orbs as he starts to devour everyone. You'll notice I'm pinging this, and at the beginning of the fight, I mentioned that groups matter, and people knowing what group they're in matters. That is specifically for this mechanic. Since there are 8 orbs here, we have 4 groups, meaning we have 5 people to each orb. These orbs can only save or protect a maximum of 5 people, so that ping is where I'm going to be putting group 1. So I say, okay, I ping this one, that means group 1 is going to be there, and everything to the right of that is going to be group 2, group 3, group 4. So this is group 1, this is group 2, this is group 3, and then this one over here is group 4. That way, people know where they're supposed to be standing, no one's going to be going to the wrong orb, and it just makes it super easy to understand where they're meant to be. And as we go through that, we all get to our orb as he starts devouring. Boss is at 15%. Ideally, he's dead at this point, or close to this point, but we move to the other side of the room, and he's actually got a decent amount of health left because we had some DPS dead, and because we just had some low DPS numbers in this fight specifically. But this is effectively the same mechanic we had in Phase 2 with the soaking, combined with a pull-in towards the tank. So you'll see, I have this circle on me. There's another circle over there. I think there's another circle over here. I can't really tell. Everything's too purple. But pretty much, we have range. They're supposed to be stacking in one. Excuse me. Melee is supposed to be stacking in another. Healer is supposed to be stacking in another. If you do this properly and have good damage, you'll never get this mechanic. But even if you do get this mechanic, just make sure you're stacking in one of these smaller circles, and you can do it. You'll see, this is actually a really scuffed kill because we didn't expect to have this mechanic, so we just kind of ran around. And you'll see, I just kind of plant myself here, and people try to get into it as best they can, but some people don't. A couple people die here. But even though they die, the boss is at 9%. There's no real mechanics left, and we can just kill the boss without having to worry about it. And that's Dimensius, the entire Mythic fight in pre-patch. Very simple, well, not very simple, but very easy now with how the balancing was changed with all the pre-patch numbers. Mechanics, there are still insta-kill mechanics or insta-wipe mechanics, but as long as you can effectively do those instant-wipe mechanics, the boss just kind of falls over. So that's Mythic Dimensius. Hopefully this was helpful to you in some way. I don't know if it was, but good luck. Hopefully you can get your mount in the next 3 weeks, because it's only 3 weeks for it to be a permanent drop chance for, I think, 3 people in the raid. So either way, that's all I got for the video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I wish you luck in your Mythic Dimensius kills.